How's it going guys, Chris here, and in this guide we're going to be checking out all those freaky enemy types in the psychological horror game Ad Infinitum. So being a soldier haunted by the horrors of the Great War, all the monsters in the game actually represent different aspects of the conflict, though in a very nightmarish kind of way. One of those being hunger, and the starvation of civilians, which comes in the form of weird demonic monkey-like creatures which can be seen munching away on rotting corpses, devouring anything they can get their grimy little hands on. Considering they're so skinny, these things sure know how to eat, treating the battlefield like a buffet, having hundreds of teeth to strip flesh from bone. They might have big gobs, but they're practically blind, having their eyes scratched out, vastly limiting their spatial awareness. With that said, hungers are the senses are heightened, so you'll need to be extra careful not to make too much sound as you crawl past them, which is sometimes easier said than done, with them often blocking your routes, and choosing to feast near tin can traps dotted around the area. If they sense that you're nearby, they'll slowly creep about, waving their arms around, trying to locate you by using a special pair of ears dotted within the palm of their hands. You'll have to carefully retreat, otherwise you'll become another snack for the zombie chimp to feast on, having one chance to push it away as it dives on top of you, but being wide open to another pounce attack as it hunts you down thereafter. Making noise therefore might not seem like a brilliant idea, but sometimes it can work in your favour, allowing you to lure hunger away from certain areas to pass through them in one piece, opening up otherwise blocked routes as the ravenous creatures go charging over to investigate the sound. The first boss creature comes in the form of Despair, a creepy swamp hag type monster with long gangly limbs, massive claw-like hands, along with a hollowed out face and body. This creature basically represents the despair of loved ones affected by the war, the wives and mothers of fallen soldiers stricken with grief, symbolised by having a dagger lodged within the monster's heart and stabbed in the back by a religious cross, maybe suggesting that its prayers weren't answered, being left in a broken state. When you encounter Despair in the gloomy waterlogged ruins, she'll clamber out of the water and persistently chase you down, with her arms outstretched, waving around to try and grab you as she charges forwards. Of course, you'll want to stay the hell away, with the monster being determined to drown you in the murky waters. You can't actually attack Despair directly, so the best thing to do is to run away and avoid being caught, navigating through the networks of destroyed buildings and debris, all while being frantically chased by the creepy old hag, who's actually surprisingly fast, giving you barely any time to slow down or make the wrong turn. Eventually you'll reach a clearing type area with a big tree plopped in the middle, where you'll find the creature moping about, looking a bit miserable. Here you can actually deal with Despair, choosing to either cheer the creature up, or wind her up even further, using the musical players dotted around the area. Activating the green ones is the good way of going about it, putting the creature in a better mood. And after transmitting the music to the sound poles, this allows you to walk on over and pull the dagger out from Despair's heart, helping to ease the torment and accept reality. If you choose to switch on the red music players though, this will aggravate the monster even more, to the point where she'll violently shake the sound poles after you transmit the sound to them. Obviously not a very big fan of the music. While the creature's distracted, you can go on to smack the big tree in the middle with your pickaxe, which will expose a beating heart. And if you stab the heart, well, this will cause it to die and casually explode in your face. The exploding tree heart actually destroys the entire clearing, while opening up some kind of weird vortex in its place, with Despair found clinging onto the transmitter pole, desperately trying not to fall into it. Because you've chosen to go down the nasty route this time, you'll deal with Despair in a much more violent fashion, stabbing away at the monster with your axe, forcing her to lose her grip, thus causing her to go tumbling backwards into the vortex, killing your demons rather than overcoming them. The biggest and probably most aggressive enemy you'll face in Ad Infinitum is Rage, made up from a bunch of human bodies and creature parts merged together to create a really messed up looking monstrosity. Multiple legs and arms, creepy conjoined skulls, huge blades protruding from its hands, this thing's got it all. Topped off with the fact that its tail is literally just some random ball food dangling down over the monster's backside. If the monster needs a crap, this guy's probably not going to have very much fun. Rage is the embodiment of all the anger surrounding the conflict, a big fiery beast that can be found charging around the trenches, bulldozing its way through them while igniting the floor in its wake. As the name implies, it's not a very happy creature, intent on trampling you into the muddy floor as it barges through, forcing you to duck and cover as it runs past by using the many dugouts built within the trench walls. Something you'll need to do whenever it shows up, as you navigate through a maze of claustrophobic pathways. Some areas require to whip out the old gas mask to pass through safely, limiting your vision, thus making rage encounters just that little bit more tense. Though when you eventually reach the exit of the area, the monster's going to race towards you and, blinded by rage, clumsily dash through a wall and right the way into a bunch of explosives, turning the place into a fireball and turning the monster into meaty debris. That's the end of that guy. So one section revolves around navigating around an industrial factory chock full of pipes, chains and metal beams, sort of looking like the place you'd expect to find one of Jigsaw's victims. This is where you'll run into the second boss of the game called Corruption, representing the greed of businessmen capitalizing on the war, profiting on death and destruction fueled by propaganda. Corruption is basically like a zombie cyborg fused with a bunch of metal parts. He can be found sitting on an iron throne, not the Iron Throne, which symbolises him being a big guy in charge, who's reaping all the profits. And in typical fashion, he's not really doing very much. But once you pull that lever in front, well, the monster's going to rise up in a very distraught and empowered fashion, like you've just asked him for a pay rise. Angrily pace towards you, rip the metal lever from out of the ground, and then go on to slap you over the head with it. It's pretty clear at this point that this guy doesn't like you very much, and you'll definitely want to avoid him at all costs, as he slowly plods around the place, chapping at you with sharp knives and swords. As if you get caught by him, well, prepared to have your eyes gouged out by his mechanical dagger-like claws. To deal with Corruption, you'll need to wander around the area, turning the valves in each corner of the room to either increase or decrease the gas pressure. But to make things a tad trickier for you, you've also got to do that while gas clouds appear from the vents, and while metal fences keep rising and falling around the area, trapping you into confined spaces while the monster slowly lumbers after you, at the pace of a horror movie slasher from the 1980s. Using the valves to lower the pressure down is the good option, as this will release the gas that sedates Corruption, allowing you to walk on over and essentially calm the monster down, causing it to reflect on its greedy actions and abandon its iron crown, before disintegrating into the atmosphere. Increasing the gas pressure, on the other hand, causes Corruption to pass out when he inhales the gas, which has now become toxic, and with this being the bad option, where you brutally murder your demons, you'll prise the dagger from his hands, go on to stab the living crap out of his vital organs, killing Corruption, and even taking his head as a trophy, just to show him who the boss is now. Arguably one of the most unsettling and probably scariest enemies comes in the form of Mayhem. Twisted, disfigured bodies fitted with prosthetic limbs and all kinds of random bits and pieces, symbolising the chaos and hopelessness field medics had to endure, essentially trying to piece heavily wounded soldiers back together using antiquated technology. Looking like the kind of thing you'd expect to see roaming around Silent Hill, Mayhem figures move around in a very clumsy, almost puppet-like way, shambling around in the dark, chattering and wailing to give you some indication of their whereabouts. They're not exactly fast creatures, but because of the limited light and space you've got while trying to avoid them, encounters can be pretty tense, especially when there's a few around all at once, creeping their way towards you from different directions. Thankfully, you do have one way to counter their movements, making life a little bit easier for yourself, and that's by shining your torch at them, temporarily freezing them in their tracks. The only downside is, it's an old-fashioned wind-up torch you've got, so there's a slight delay when you turn it on, and it only lasts for a few seconds each time. The dark rooms are packed full of clutter, so you'll need to rely on that torch to both navigate around while preventing the nasty monsters from getting too close. Though because they don't really like the light, if you reach a brightly lit area, you can assume you're temporarily safe. At least until you've got to go back into the darkness again. So the last boss in the game is a freaky looking bird guy, a monster which symbolises pain. It's pretty obvious how pain fits into the theme of war, but the creature itself is definitely out of the ordinary, having large feathered wings, long skinny talons, and a face that even a mother couldn't love, basically being the stuff of nightmares. You run into this monster a few times towards the end of the game, where you're basically hunting each other, with it popping up out of the darkness to send shivers down your spine. Though you'll eventually need to take Pain on in a big attic-styled room littered with cages and barbed wire, pretty much being the nest of the creature, which is found practically stuffed inside a cramped-looking bird cage. As you awaken the beast, it'll go on to clamber out from within said cage, and eerily stare you out, before flying off into the shadows, pretty much activating the boss fight sequence, giving you a chance to either kill or overcome it. You'll notice a searchlight in the middle of the room that's gone a bit haywire, frantically spinning around and eventually stopping to reveal the creature's whereabouts in the air, just before it's about to perform a dive bomb attack on you from the cover of darkness. You need to either raise or lower the different cage towers around the room, once again either having the good or bad outcome depending on your choice. Lowering them down reveals support beams underneath, which you can lure the monster to crash into by standing in front of them as it swoops down for an aerial attack. This will cause the ceiling to collapse, knocking you down in the process, though thankfully for you, when you wake up to find the big pain monster chilling out nearby, it seems to have had a change of heart, choosing to stop being violent towards you, while embracing the light rather than cowering away from it. gracefully dissolving into a pile of floaty feathers as it disappears into the bright rays. But let's say you want to go down the evil route, and decide to raise those spiky barbed wire wrapped cage towers instead. You'll deal with the monster in the same sort of way, acting as bait by standing in front of those towers, enticing pain to glide on by and crash into them, causing it a lot more pain in the process. This puts the creature in a less forgiving mood, eventually swooping down to pick you up, carrying you around the room until you manage to switch your flashlight on, startling the monster and causing it to drop you down to the floor below. As it turns out, you're actually not the one that's come out the worst in this, as that brief distraction was enough to cause the creature to smash into that searchlight in the middle of the room, now left in a bit of a jumbled up mess on the ground. Of course, with this being the bad outcome, you'll get to fight fire with fire, dealing with pain by dishing it out upon the monster, finishing the job by violently battering the thing senseless with your wire cutter, putting an end to its misery by turning that fugly face into lasagna. So those are all the different enemy types and monsters you'll find throughout the game Ad Infinitum. Hope you enjoyed the guide. If you did, you know what to do. And if you want to see more videos just like this, subscribe and head over to my channel for loads of other enemy guides on there. Thanks for watching guys, have a good day, and I'll be seeing you in that next one.